Membership means more with American Express Business Gold. Earn 4 times membership rewards points in your top 2 eligible spending categories every month, including eligible U.S. advertising purchases and select media, and U.S. purchases at restaurants, including takeout and delivery. What are you waiting for? Get the card that flexes with your spending every month. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Hey everybody, it's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Enjoying the Olympic break. We're recording right before the tournament starts, and very excited to talk about a player who I feel like he's caricatured as a certain type of player, and the more and more I think about him, and this is now going to be, I think, the second time this season he's playing a pretty big role in an episode, and this time he's getting his own episode. I've started to realize this guy actually played a pretty important role for the Islanders in the era, and also just beyond. And I have come around to really, I always liked him, obviously, for what he did, but I've come to actually appreciate him, not just like him, because I think he's actually had a pretty outsized impact on the franchise that maybe goes undetected because you think about this player and one kind of image comes to your mind. But when you sit back and think about it, and think about him and his time on the island, which is the entire point of this podcast, it starts to dawn on you a little bit that he brought something more to the table, something that this team and this franchise were desperately needed at the time when he came through. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about him because I think he deserves his due.
Yeah, definitely a very kind of underrated. I don't want to overuse the word underrated, but definitely kind of an underappreciated presence on an Islanders team that was still looking for an identity, and certainly a much more complex and somewhat mischaracterized guy than he was made out to be at the time. And we'll go through all of the many facets of his career, his many stops, and talk about sort of what his teammates thought of him, which was a little bit different than what the public at large thought of him outside of the Islanders. Obviously, Islanders fans are all fans of his. I can't imagine anybody of this era not being a fan of this player. And we're going to talk to one fan of this player because he's the man who picked him from the Isles House podcast. It's Rocco, PizzaSportsGuy. Rocco, how's it going?
Good. How's it going, boys?
It's going great. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Glad to finally complete our set of Isles House hosts. We've had Ethan on, we've had Jack on, and now we have you on. I love your show. I listen to it all the time, and I got to give you a ton of credit because it must be very hard to do a podcast when one guy lives on the West Coast. So how the hell do you manage to maintain a podcast when one of your voices literally lives 3 time zones away?
Well, Ethan and I basically tell Jack, listen, we both got a couple kids, so you kind of got to be a little flexible here and hop on with us at 6:30 your time. So usually hop on. Honestly, I'm part of it too because I don't get out of work till 8:30 some nights, sometimes even 9 o'clock. We record 9:30, 10 p.m. Eastern, but it works out. It's basically like post-game shows a lot of the times because game ends, game wraps up, we'll hop on. We'll pick a game each week. Let's hop on after the Tuesday night game and so on and so forth. So we all do a good job of making it work. Thankfully, Jack, his work schedule, I think he kind of works East Coast time. He has a lot of East Coast clients. So he'll hop on with us typically right at 6:30, no issues. And it's just funny thinking about because when we finish the episodes, Ethan and I are going right to bed.
Sure.
And Jack's like, I'm going to eat dinner. So it's we make it work, but we're all on different wavelengths.
Yeah. No, again, it's great. I'm glad you guys make it work because I really enjoy the show. And I'm the guy who does all the scheduling for these shows. And so every time you guys mention he's in LA, my brain just starts to go haywire. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what that's like. But no, it's awesome. And again, you guys make it work. And I like having the the post game show. It's pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of times when I'm done here, I just walk right across my hallway and go to sleep. We'll talk more about the show later. We definitely have some pizza questions for you later on as well, which is your other passion, of course. But let's get to our Weird Islander of the day, because there's so much to get to. I completely didn't realize that this guy's career was so deep and so varied and so complex. And so, Rocco, will you please reveal the subject of tonight's episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast?
So the subject of tonight's episode, one of my favorite enforcers in team history, and arguably one of the best mustaches in team history, Trevor Gillies.
Right on all counts. Trevor Gillies, a man who brings a smile, I think, to most Islanders fans' faces of this era. Again, a guy who's sort of mischaracterized, and a guy who's got a career that I don't think a lot of people, kind of understand, but we're going to go through it all. Before we do that, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, chats with us, and a whole lot more. You can try a 7-day trial of our Country Club tier, or just join for free to get our weekly release calendar. So sign up any way you can. Patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Okay, Rocco, we showed you the list. We're in year 5 now, so a lot of the bigger names are kind of off the board, but Trevor Gillies jumped out to you. You're obviously a huge fan, but what is it about Trevor Gillies that made you such a fan that, he jumped out of the list for you?
It's just the impact he had on the team. And, it's not just any old Islanders you're picking, right? It's Weird Islanders. So you go through the list. And when you sent it over to me, I was just looking for someone that jumped off the screen, basically. And right away, I see that name, Trevor Gillies. I just see him barking at Tangradi from the side as the guy is just down and out. I think of Mario Lemieux complaining after the game.
Yes.
It was just like, it was basically reality television having Trevor Gillies on the Islanders team. So I think it's in his own way, a very entertaining player, and I think he'll make for a very entertaining episode.
Oh, definitely. Mike, I know you're a fan, and we're definitely going to talk about that important Penguins game, as Rocco just mentioned, with Eric Tangradi and Gillies being kind of two of the main characters in that. But aside from that game, what do you remember when you think of the words Trevor Gillies?
Yeah, I mean the mustache for sure. Striking eyes on the guy too. Like
yes.
he had a beautiful pair of eyes, and they looked right through you. And I feel like the FSN cameras were always they when the puck was about to drop and they do like a shot and they'd show Jack Capuano and then like a few players on the bench, they'd always get Gillies in there, and he just had that. What's the opposite of 1,000-yard stare? Like one where you're just eye to eye with someone, and
right.
He was just, I don't know who he was looking at or what, but there was something in that guy's head, and he was the most jacked up player on both benches every night.
Right.
The least talented as well, but that's okay. And
right.
I think that I'm very proud that he was an Islander. Like he was our guy. Like I'm happy that we got him. And he just wasn't a footnote in the NHL for another team, and I got to watch him and to understand like what a Trevor Gillies does to a team, to a roster, especially at that junction of the Islander experience, where they were starting to show that maybe they were putting things together. The future was supposed to be bright with the core they were gathering, with the guy they drafted before Victor Hedman, Travis Hamonic, Oposo, Bailey. They had they kind of had the pieces to push this thing forward. And then they have this guy who kind of instilled a bit of heavy metal into them, and they I think they desperately needed it. Like we know that the enforcer is gone the way of the dodo now, but some teams need one, and that team absolutely needed one. And they got the right one too, I would say. Like they got the guy. I mean, he was fighting. You'd go to like an Islander Ranger game in like the early 2000s or whatever. And you'd be like, I really hope somebody punches Sandy McCarthy in the face, and and Trevor Gillies would just be that guy. Like he would find the guy. He would know. He'd go on like Mike Must Go or HF boards or whatever the boards were back then, Lighthouse Hockey, and be like, I'm gonna go find what player we hate the most on this team we're playing tonight, and I'm gonna go punch that guy in the face. It really felt like that, and I've got a lot of time for players like that.
Yeah. It's funny that they needed a guy like that. and yet they had a bunch of guys like that. So, and most of them we've talked about on this show. Gillies will be second on the Islanders in penalty minutes that year, behind Zenon Konopka, another legend of the fight game of that era. And then fifth on the Islanders in penalty minutes that year was Michael Haley, who we've talked about on this show as well. All these guys really hold a special place in everybody's hearts. And proud is a good way to put it. We're going to get to what he kind of meant to Islanders fans of this era, I guess, probably in a little bit. But before we get to his Islanders tenure, we got to talk about his pre-Islanders tenure, which is actually, again, a lot longer than I think people realize. I know I didn't know any of this. And so we do research for this show, and I'm writing it down, and I'm like, man, this is a lot that I didn't know about. And so number one thing I didn't know was that he was undrafted, which isn't too surprising for a guy who played like him. But number one, the second thing I didn't realize was that he was first signed by the Rangers, of all teams, in 2004. I did not know this. He gets traded by the Rangers with a 4th-round pick, which turns out to be a player named Brett Bruneteau, to Anaheim for Steve Ruchin. Ducks legend Steve Ruchin, who played one season for the Rangers, came over in a trade basically for Trevor Gillies and a 4th-round pick. Gillies plays his first game in the NHL with the Ducks in 2005. Again, I had no idea any of this happened. And then I guess by 2007, he had, wasn't in the Duck system anymore, and he ends up signing with Carolina, doesn't play for them. But there's a lot of minor league teams we'll get to in a little bit. Rocco, I'll throw it back to you. Did you know any of this when thinking about Trevor Gillies? Because all of this came as a great shock to me. The Rangers, the Ducks, the Canes. I had no idea any of this happened.
No. I mean, I just thought he was like one of these guys that was hanging around on the Syracuse Crunch forever.
Yeah.
Like you guys remember that minor league team in that era that they had like
nasty John Morasty.
Yeah.
Like I just thought he was like in my mind, he was just on the Syracuse Crunch for 10 years, and then we needed an enforcer. And then Snow made the call, and he was on the island. Like that's how it went down. I definitely didn't realize he was a part of the Rangers organization. And then, no disrespect to him, but you think about the NHL now and the fact that he got traded. Oh, he got traded with a 4th-round pick. I'm sorry, or a player. So like, and it's just not really a player you see get traded now. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's more waiver guy. Maybe he gets picked up. He's probably passing through, like a Ross Johnston light type deal. So no, I didn't. I really thought it was just kind of floating around somewhere, and then we kind of picked him up just to throw hands. Really,
I remember him. I remember him as a. I think just because of when the Islanders traded for him, I probably was just like reading about him, and so I remember him having the one game with the Ducks. I cannot believe that he was traded for Steve Ruchin. Like that's as lopsided as it can get. And and then when he arrived, I didn't really think anything of it. They were just, I mean, obviously the last name Gillies means a lot to Islander fans. So I know a lot of us were like being like, oh, I wonder if there's a relation. No, there isn't. And then there was also like a kind of like a journeyman AHL goalie at the time, like John Gillies or something like that, who might have had a stop at Bridgeport. I don't remember. Maybe he was at Hartford. But so I was like trying to like parse through which Gillies we were getting. And then you realize who this guy was, and you're like, oh, like he's as Rocco was saying, kind of like a minor league guy who the cliche enforcer of already a bygone era. By the time the Islanders got him, the enforcer was on the way out, right? And you weren't seeing these kind of guys in the league. Maybe like each team that wasn't going to the playoffs would have like one. Eric Goddard was still around with protecting. His job was to protect Sidney Crosby. And
ironically, a few of them played on the Penguins, which
that is pretty funny actually to think about. Like that Penguins team, they needed an enforcer for a similar reason, right? They had a franchise savior they needed to protect, and I think Mario Lemieux as their owner probably thought how comfortable he got to. They made it for him during his era, so they employed a few. But so like I just thought, okay, like this guy's probably just not going to matter, right? He's just going to come play for Bridgeport. He'll do whatever. He'll punch people in the face in Connecticut, and that'll be that. And I mean, I was wrong. He did do that, but he then of course comes up with to the Islanders eventually, and as as we keep saying, like this is a bona fide enforcer too.
Yeah.
Like this back in that era, as we were saying, like the twilight of the enforcer age, there are guys who were like, they would throw Matt Martin type kind of guys. Like, yeah, he can fight. But he's here to play. He can play too. He's a fourth liner. He's a forechecker, etc. There was no mistaking here, right? Like Trevor Gillies was on this team to play 4 minutes a night and find somebody to ruin their night. And also make sure that nobody touched a few of the young players. And that was it. Like the Islanders didn't dress it up like anything else. They didn't try to, like, and I really appreciated the honesty of both Trevor Gillies and the Islanders at the time, which was that, like, this guy is here for that reason. And if you want to arrest us, this is the beginning of like the Twitter age of hockey, where people were like really, pushing their thick framed glasses up on their nose and being like, you can't have an enforcer. And the Islanders were like, well, we need one. And the 8,000 people that would come to Islander games those days, they really liked watching Trevor Gillies. So why not?
We've got a first overall pick who can barely skate. We need an enforcer. Thank you very much. This kid is, whatever, however old Tavares was, 19 or something. We need a guy to keep this guy healthy while he learns how to skate and score goals. And so 2009, the Islanders, or the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, signed Trevor Gillies to an AHL contract. He is 30 years old at the time, and had played 10 years in the minors. So you're not kidding. This guy was a bona fide enforcer. Like, we had 300 penalty minutes for one team, 269 for another, 277 for two others, including Hartford. Like, this guy had been around the block, but it was all in the minors, in the ECHL and the AHL, except for the one game with the Ducks, obviously. So he gets signed by Bridgeport. And then in January of 2010, so just a few months later, he gets signed by the Islanders at an NHL contract. And he comes up and he plays 14 games for them in the 2009-2010 season. Obviously not a good one for the Islanders. They missed the playoffs. But he comes up, and I found an interesting article that our friend Dom wrote for Lighthouse Hockey, basically calling him already the Islanders' enforcer of the future. Like, it was very clear that he made an impact right away. Rocco, do you remember this? Again, this is before fight night, but do you remember him prior to that when he came up for the Islanders, starting in the 2010 season and made his mark towards the end of that season the first time?
I feel like every time, as you said, it was sort of the twilight of the enforcer era. But I feel like each time they signed a guy like this, the first thing I'd go and do is go to YouTube and just watch this guy. So I do remember him for that reason and that reason alone, pretty much, is because you sign the name, you hear he's a big guy, you hear he's an enforcer. It's like, all right, let's go to YouTube. Let's see who he's fought. Let's see if he could actually fight. And man, could he fight. Like, he could. After I chose him, I actually went back to YouTube again. It was like a big time throwback. And I was looking at some of the fights. I mean, he fought Bissonnette. He kind of beat up Bissonnette.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get a fight early on here. Trevor Gillies and Paul Bissonnette. Right as the puck was dropped. And right now it's shadow boxing, but pretty soon somebody's going to throw one. You would think. Well, they got to get their advantage. Oh, there we go. Now there's an advantage. Gillies got a good left hand in on Bissonnette. Oh, boy, throwing hard. Overhand left. Down goes the helmet. Now a couple to the back of the head. Both helmets are off. Gillies has scored far more than Bissonnette in this bout. And the line's been edged towards them, but don't sense that it's over. Now they look a little tired. They're letting them go some more, Howie. Well, so much for fatigue. Bissonnette answers with a couple of rights. Best flurry that he's shown so far. Well, this is an excellent fight where Gillies had the upper hand. Bissonnette's come back a little bit. Now Gillies again is coming back. Boy, these guys got some kind of stamina. This comes 2:13 into the game on their respective first shifts. And the linesmen really want them to get tuckered out, and they're satisfied that they are. And Gillies whispers in Bissonnette's ear, nice job. And they went at it pretty hard. Two tough guys in the National Hockey League, and as I keep saying, boy, Howie, am I glad I didn't have to earn my living doing that.
He really fought some heavyweights, too.
All of them, yeah.
All of them. So, like, back at that, and you guys remember, back during that era, there was kind of like groupings, right? Like I think people have this image of someone like Bissonnette and he did, and to his credit, he did fight heavyweights, but I wouldn't have considered him a heavyweight back then.
Yeah.
Where Gillies kind of was. So like someone like Bissonnette to him was kind of like easy work. And then he'd go and fight, I think he had Bugard, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Karkner, who was a pretty big boy, he fought. Bunch of guys. And it just like, wow, this is going to be fun. Because you know what? When you had guys like that, it was always exciting when you had that player that could win the fight, right? Because when you're going into these games, and mind you, the Islanders were not a good team back then. So, you have a young guy like Tavares at the time. You had other young guys coming in, like I think Niederreiter was the next year, or so on and so forth. And you just felt like they'd be protected. And if these big guys went after him, you'd have a guy that could actually fight, right? Like, and it was, listen, was it good hockey from Gillies? No. Was it fun to watch, and was it entertaining, and was it maybe a little bit of a WWE sideshow? Sure, but it was fun to watch. It was definitely fun to watch. In some dark years, he made things fun. And you know what I like about the guy too? I feel like you go back to that era and even before, like into the late 90s, all the way back to the late 90s. And you have a lot of these players that just like did not enjoy their time here, did not appreciate playing for the team. This is a guy that really, like, he comes back to games every now and then, and it's nice having a guy from that era that really, just appreciated being an Islander, if you will. And I know part of it is because we gave him his basically only cup of coffee, but I do like having guys like that because that era was so bleak. So to have a couple guys show up and, you give them the ovation, they were fun. It's good, I like seeing him at games. It brings back good memories.
Yeah, he's the type of guy, and we're the type of fan base where Trevor Gillies will see the beauty in the New York Islanders and their fans, even during that time when the Coliseum's run down, they're the laughing stock, and we saw the beauty in Trevor Gillies, who was kind of a laughing stock too, right? Like to the greater hockey world, nobody really took him seriously as a hockey player. They knew what he was doing, and I think we, as I keep saying, like this is, and maybe this is just the type of person and player he is like we kind of just looked each other in the eye and said, like, we're here. You know why we're here? We're here because we're losers who love this terrible team, and we know why you're here, and you're here to fight people, and not because you're a hockey player for this terrible team. And shook each other's hands, and we're like, all right, let's do this. And I think that's part of why this relationship has endured, because I mean, I would say that your on Islander alumni power rankings in terms of guys who show up at the turn of every corner, like Sean Bates is kind of running away with the crown at the time, but then like Trevor Gillies is right in there with like the Radek Martinek as the horses chasing Batesy down. So and he gets a pop. Like he always gets a pop because he, as I just said, like the appreciation was there, and it was there from right away. Like there was no feeling out process. There wasn't a hey, like I'm gonna see if I can make it as a player with my skill on this Islander team that was terrible, and maybe I can outproduce some of the also rans also on this team. It was, no, I'm going right to the fourth line. I'm going right to the end of the bench. I'm going to hop over the bench. I'm going to go fight Brandon Prust, and that'll be it. That'll be my night. And so there was really just no small talk. It was, and that was great. I mean, as Long Islanders, I think we just really appreciate that. Like the last thing we want to do is small talk.
What? Yeah, 100%. We absolutely, as a fan base, appreciate these types of guys. Going back to Bob Nystrom. Why is Bob Nystrom Mr. Islander? Because he could scored the biggest goal in team history, and he can fight. Like he just was not afraid to just throw hands. He wasn't a heavyweight, but he was not afraid to throw hands during an era when everybody was always constantly throwing hands in the 70s. And Rocco, your point about Gillies fighting the heavyweights is actually important, because I watched the fight with Derek Bugard, may he rest in peace, and I had completely forgotten that Derek Bugard is the size of literally two men. Like he was an enormous human being, and Trevor Gillies is an enormous human being, but Bugard made Gillies look like a normal sized guy, which is insane. And I don't remember how the fight didn't go particularly well for Gillies, but most fights against Bugard didn't go that well. But I completely forgot that he was that big. But I mean, he stood in there.
And now we got Gillies and Bugard. And
watch out.
there we go.
Gloves off, sticks down.
Gillies and Bugard. Bugard obviously with a size advantage here.
Well, I guess it didn't take that long.
Not on the clock. Gillies just waiting for an opening. And Bugard, it's a big man to tangle with.
And the long arms. I mean, it's just Sam,
Bugard is so big and strong.
Sam, I feel for anybody that has to fight Bugard. I mean, he just. We give Gillies credit, and he's hung in there. He's had a chance to go down. He took a couple of pretty good shots early. He's strong, as you can see, Gillies. And now I think he's done a pretty good job of tying up the arms.
And like Mike just said, that was the job, to get in there and prove and show that these guys aren't going to like push our young guys around. And so he did fight the heavyweights. Bugard is one of them. Matt Karkner, I would probably put, because he was a big dude. But then there was a lot of sort of like, I guess we might consider them sort of like welterweight types, like Bissonnette, like Brandon Prust, who I wrote in the notes here. I called him a Rangers hemorrhoid.
And now gloves come off. Brandon Prust and Trevor Gillies. Trevor Gillies, no relation to former Islander great Clark Gillies. And there we go.
He's one of those martial arts guys, Sam Gillies is. In fact, he was getting ready for this game by watching every fight that Jody Shelley had been in this year, studying him.
Trevor Gillies is 31 years old. This is his 8th NHL game. And he gets in the short punch as Prust's helmet has been twisted.
Prust gives up size to all these heavyweights. And he's a good fighter. He's a smart fighter.
He kind of was, to me, just an annoying guy. I just couldn't stand the sight of him out there. Mike Rupp, another former Weird Islander. I found a fight with him and Gillies here. Not a huge guy, but, a guy who can definitely fight. He wasn't afraid.
Oh, and a fight here. It's Rupp and it's Gillies. And this is a momentum type fight for both teams. Gillies wants to help get his team really back into it, and Rupp wants to try and get his team back to the energy early. Oh, good left by Trevor Gillies. Trevor Gillies comes to play. He comes to do his role every game. And the more you get to know Trevor Gillies, the more you get to like him as a person.
And Cam Jansen is another one, more of a wild man than anything else, who now has a podcast, ironically. But like, these were not guys that Trevor Gillies was afraid of, because he was just as big and just as skilled as a fighter as any of them. And again, if you're listening to this and, kind of a newer fan and you're like, but why? Why would you care that this guy was fighting? You don't understand. They needed a guy like this because their team was young, very bad, and trying to establish themselves as something, anything, and trying to build a culture and build a new foundation and a future around guys like Tavares, Molson, Bailey, Oposo, dudes like that. And you needed somebody there to, keep everybody kind of in check. And so you wouldn't have the other team running amok over them. And guys like Gillies and Konopka, who we mentioned before, were definitely part of that. The Islanders re-signed Gillies, I guess, at that point. And we get into the 2010-2011 season. This would be Trevor Gillies' most games in the NHL. He played 39 games this year for the Islanders with 165 penalty minutes. Also scores his 2 career NHL goals. The first of them, pretty damn good, I gotta say.
Here's Konopka putting it out in front. They score! It might have been Trevor Gillies who went to the net. And if it is, Gillies has his first National Hockey League goal. And the Islanders tie it 1-1.
Well, you're right. It is Trevor Gillies as he goes to the net. And what a great play by Kevin Konopka. I mean, you you talk about someone calling you the doormat, and boy, he makes a tremendous play. Watch this on Kuba. Konopka blocks that, kept it pass, and he does the smart thing. Nice little chip pass, and Gillies with his stick on the ice goes to the net. Nice play.
That's a pretty skilled goal for a guy mainly known for throwing his fist. But no, he was a regular player and a guy who I don't remember being that much of a liability out there, as you know, when he wasn't fighting. And now a word from our sponsors. VintageIceHockey.com. Over 100 classic hockey logos on t-shirts, jerseys, hats, mugs, and more. Long Island Ducks, Albany Riverettes, Danbury Trashers, Kentucky Thoroughblades, and so many more. Plus a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch with our portion of the sales going directly to the Center for Dementia Research. These incredible items cannot be found in stores, so shop VintageIceHockey.com today. Relax, sit back, and enjoy wine from The Pinot Project. Rosé, Pinot Grigio, or a Pinot Noir that was named a Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. These wines are delicious, affordable, and available at area wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com, and please drink responsibly. Now we get to, I guess, what we would call the main event. No pun intended. That would be February 11th, 2011. The infamous fight night game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. We've talked about this a lot. Rocco, before we get into our memories of Trevor Gillies here, where were you on this night? Where did you watch this game from? And what were your feelings during it, while it was happening? Because it is still a very memorable game for Islanders fans of this era.
I believe I was at my childhood home because I was still, my first year of college actually was going to Post. I was local before I ended up going away. So I was in my childhood home watching, probably screaming in my living room. Just one of the, you kind of felt it coming, right? Because you had the DiPietro incident that led to this, if I'm not mistaken. So you had that. So you felt like something was coming, but I don't think anyone could have expected the level in which it came.
No.
Because it was literal madness. I remember, if we saw that now, again, different era, different time, but if that happened now, I can't imagine how the hockey world and all of social media would react. It was one of those games where when you're watching, it almost didn't feel real.
Yeah.
On a much lesser scale, and more of a circus, but it almost was like a similar vibe to watching that USA versus Canada Four Nations game when it's just wait, they're fighting again. Wait, they're fighting again. Wait, they're fighting again. It just felt so crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just an Islander side that just did not have much talent. So you're kind of have these goons running around, as you said before. They had Haley, they had Gillies, and they did have Konopka, correct?
Yes.
They had all of them. And by the way, wanted to mention this. Very underrated part of that team was the goal song that I believe Zen and Konopka came up with, "Live is Life" by Opus.
Yep.
Still my favorite, might still be my favorite goal song.
Yeah,
but,
we lament that going away all the time.
I heard that at one of the Olympic Games just this week, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
I would love to bring that back. Anyway, just absolute madness. At the time, pumped up, enjoying it. If it happened with our team now, I don't know if I'd feel the same way, but when I was living in the moment, I was greatly enjoying it. And at that time, I hated the Penguins. I did not like Crosby, although I have come full circle on Crosby and appreciate him as a player. At the time, he had that whiny persona. He was annoying. He would cry to the refs. So you kind of felt like they were the golden child of the NHL, and we were the evil stepbrother, if you will. So it was just that fun little rivalry that probably meant a lot more to us than it did to other people. So that's what I remember from it. And, still have fond memories, although it was an absolute circus.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was happening and you realized as it was happening, I'm going to remember this forever, and that's that's a very sports thing to happen, but it's very rare that it's happening to your team. Because I would remember, you remember some of the fight nights that other teams had, like the Sabres and the Senators had that insane brawl with Ryan Miller and Ray Emery, and Obviously the Red Wings and the Avalanche back in the day. And I was just like, the Islanders just don't get involved in that stuff right now. And it just felt like they needed something like that to rally around. And it's what has been really nice and almost reassuring is that as a fan watching that, you're like, this means a lot to me. And then thinking, well, I'm just like a fan. So I'm sure the players don't, they'll laugh about it. But when these players like the Josh Baileys and Hamonicks, et cetera, as their careers kind of went on, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, a lot of these guys were just like, I mean, we spoke to Ty Wishart and he's like, he was in Australia on a beach and being like, I will never forget that night. He didn't even freaking play in the game. Like he was a healthy scratch. And he was talking about how much he regretted or was upset that, he just couldn't be a part of it. And to hear them talk about that really was a reassuring that, like, man, if I'm happy that these guys appreciate that moment as in the same way that we did, which was that this was a, what they're most of the big moments in a sports franchise are big wins, playoff wins, huge comebacks, draft picks, etc. For the Islanders, man, this one, as far as regular season games go, this one's up there. Like it meant a lot, and I think that obviously Gillies and his cronies like played a huge role in it, and showing that like we're just not going to be pushed around anymore, especially by this group. Like you said, I despise those Penguins teams so much. I despise Mario Lemieux. I still despise Mario Lemieux. Rocco is a bigger man than I am because I still cannot stand the sight of Sidney Crosby. I hate hearing the Canadian media talk about him the way they do, and like we got to get this guy on a stamp. I'm like, I want to kick that guy in the face still. and so like I just couldn't stand those teams, and it was nice to see the Islanders feel the same way. Like, I don't want Max Talbot skating around like making fun of the Islanders anymore. I want Matt Martin, cold cocking him from behind, and then Michael Haley chasing down Brent Johnson. Like I wanted that to happen, and it happened. It felt good to see it, and our man Trevor was he front and center. And as we were saying, like it's really hard to imagine something like this happening again. And it's also one of the things that I take the most pride in, and I know we'll get to it, is how the Penguins broadcast crew had just an absolute diaper fit in the commentary box as this was going on. It's that they were like basically, Trevor Gillies is barking at Tangradi, and these guys are essentially dialing 911 to have him arrested on the spot.
I think it's Phil Bourque was the Penguins color analyst. You could almost hear him like taking off his jacket and tie. Like, let me out there,
Let me at him. Come up here and say that to my face, Trevor.
Right. I don't understand how this hasn't been made into a 30 for 30 yet. Like, we're here talking about this one game, but like Rocco mentioned before, that game was the culmination of like a year of disrespect and injuries caused by the Penguins to the Islanders. It started with the Blake Como concussion. Max Talbot was kind of the ringleader of that. The next game, the Islanders try to fight back. Rick DiPietro goes out against Brent Johnson, gets one punched, and goes down rather embarrassingly. Marc-Andre Fleury, everybody's favorite, goalie, was on the bench. Looked like he was kind of having a good laugh about it because he was on the bench at the time. So this was just like a year of just the Penguins just pissing on the Islanders every chance they had. And the Islanders just didn't really have anything. And so here comes this game at Nassau Coliseum. The Islanders won this game, by the way, 9-3. The game completely got out of hand right off the bat in the score sheet. And then the fight started happening from the second period. Right from really from the first period, but then throughout the entire game. And it's just kind of a crazy thing.
Haley shoulders Talbot. They have some words. And then Tangradi and Gillies. And Tangradi turtles.
Tangradi's hurt. You can see him. He's bent over.
Oh, it's my error then. He was hurt on the hit. He didn't look like it at first. Because it took him an extra second or two to crumble.
Look at Haley's got Talbot. And they were kind of eyeing each other up. And
I was watching them because they were on one side of the ice as that other hit was being initiated. And they were jawing. After Talbot and Haley came together, they had some words as though they wanted to go, thought better of it temporarily. Talbot down on his back.
Haley got in a pretty good shot. Gillies, he's upset, and they're going to push him off the ice right away. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Haley's going after the goalie. Oh, he wants him. Look, they're not going to let him get to him.
Now it's way out of control, and Johnson's in his second fight in a week. And Haley is trying to do to him what Johnson did to Rick DiPietro. I think Talbot's in there also.
Oh, they're motioning at the benches because they're worried because it's an But if you look at Tangrady's down here, he got hurt on that deal with Gillies.
Yeah, my apologies to Tangrady for thinking he had turtle. Gillies is still yelling at him from the runway.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened because I think Tangrady was going to get the original penalty. But, boy, this is crazy now. As you're right, Haley came all the way down, and he was looking for Johnson.
Eric Goddard, I believe, came off the bench to get into it.
If you haven't watched it, you should go back and watch it. If somebody out there can make a 30 for 30 about this and cover the whole thing, I think people would see that Penguins team in a very different light than they were at the time. In the very unlikely event that you will ever see a game like this again, unless it will be shunned and hated by most of the hockey and general public, unless it's the Lightning and Panthers. If the Lightning and Panthers are doing it, then it's great. If anybody else is doing it, they don't want it because they're the only two teams that are allowed to have hatred for each other these days. But you guys have been talking about Eric Tangrady. Now, Tangrady was a member of the Penguins. I believe he was a forward. Gillies hit Tangrady into the boards. And then right after that, he starts throwing hands. It's pretty clear that Tangrady is concussed from the minute he gets hit into the boards. And then Gillies starts wailing on him. He goes down on the ice. He's down there for a long time. This is really when the Penguins broadcast crew starts to lose it.
We got Gillies. He's in the open door at Tangrady. He might come back on the ice. They got to close the door down at the far end. This is ridiculous right now. The linesmen all go down to the other fight. Now Tangrady's down on one knee. Gillies is looking like he wants to come out. Ridiculous.
Yeah, see you later, Trevor. Go back inside of your cage.
The referee opens this happened right by the gate at Nassau Coliseum. The referee opens the gate, sends Gillies away. And this is the sort of indelible image of from this game is Gillies screaming back at the ice from the gate. He's off the ice, but he's screaming back. So we all kind of assume that he was yelling at Tangrady. And this is kind of like where it starts to take an ugly turn, where it's like, we're yelling at the guy who's down on the ice. And, he's obviously in a lot of pain. Frankly, his career was never the same after this, Tangrady. It didn't end here, but it was almost. This was sort of the beginning of the end for him. Apparently, though, according to Ty Wishart, who we just talked to, and according to sort of after the game, reporting, it wasn't Tangrady that Gillies was yelling at. Gillies was actually having a go at the Penguins trainer, who was yelling at him and calling him all kinds of names, just calling him a meathead, saying these terrible things about him, and Gillies is yelling back at him. So he's actually yelling at the trainer and not Tangrady. But again, in the moment, this is the scene. This is what people took away. This was what got circulated the next day. And people were like, oh my God, this guy's an animal. He's crazy. They got to get him out of the league. Rocco, that moment, what did you think of it? Is that sort of where you started to maybe sort of rethink your position on this game as maybe we're going a little bit too far here? Because again, we thought he was yelling at Tangrady. It turns out he wasn't. But at the time, it looked pretty ugly.
Yeah, that's like what I said before. It started kind of turning into a WWE scene at that point.
Yeah.
Just the optics of it just didn't look good, right? If you're a fan of another team and you're watching the highlights on SportsCenter or wherever you watch highlights of the games, and that pops up, and it was all over the place, right? That was the lasting image. Even when I picked him, that's the image in my mind is him yelling at him, yelling at Tangrady while he's down hurt, not the trainer. So it didn't look good. And then the story comes out after and it's not as bad, but still. But at the same time, it's an intense sport. Things happen in the moment. You're angry. You just were literally fighting with another human being. So you see guys yell and scream, much more so back then, just after fights, yelling and screaming from the penalty boxes, throwing things at one another from penalty boxes. But just the optics of him basically being thrown out of the game, supposed to be headed down the tunnel, and he just turns around and is giving it to, again, what looked like at that time Tangrady, but really the trainer. But it just, at that point I remember thinking, this is getting a little bit out of hand. And I was sort of waiting for one of the refs to kind of just push him down and be like,
right,
go down to the locker room and let that be that. But it just wasn't the case. And it's funny too, because I think about how the Coliseum was set up versus how UBS is now, where the locker room is, you go through the bench now, where back at the Coliseum, you had to go through over in the corner. So had that been at a more modern arena with the locker room tunnel right behind the benches, maybe it's a different story. But at that time, where it took place happened to be right. It was like a perfect storm of madness, really.
Yeah.
How it all ended up happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious that they end up right at that door. And you see the guy in like the iconic Nassau Coliseum security, the yellow windbreaker, like standing in the background, like opening the door. Yeah, and he's just there yelling. And yeah, I mean, I'll say this. So now, like watching this play over and over again, at first I'm like, oh boy, Trevor just, he just wanted in on the action. He probably forced that one a little bit too much. Like I think Trevor, maybe you might want to rethink that hit. But when you actually watch it, and as Rocco was saying, like you need to remember that this is in the context of essentially just a brawl. Like this entire game was just a brawl. These two teams hated each other. There was, as you said, like there was the Blake Como thing. There was the
DiPietro.
The DiPietro got run into by Matt Cook, and then
right, yeah.
Like Matt Cook was involved here too. So it's not like, as we said, like these aren't shrinking violets on the Penguins that everyone thinks, right? It's not Marc-Andre Fleury pulling all the funny hijinks that these reporters just can't get enough of these days. These guys it was a dirty group as well, and since they were the golden child of the league at the time, they got away with a lot of shit.
Yes,
a lot of shit, and Trevor Gillies didn't let them get away with, and Michael Haley they didn't let him get away with anything on this night. And if you watch the hit, they show like an angle, and the hit itself isn't bad. Like it's borderline. It's probably charging more than like a boarding, because like Tangrady's shoulders are. He's not like back. He doesn't have his numbers to Gillies. Gillies is flying across the ice at him. I can't really excuse him for that. But it's like a side on side hit that it somehow turns into a hit that doesn't look that bad, but you can tell right away that this is a man who's got a concussion. Like he's in a bad way, and Gillies immediately, because I think in my head, if I'm not an NHL enforcer, I think that Gillies knows I'm going to deliver a huge hit here, and I'm going to have to be ready to go because of the way that this game was going. Like he was I'm assuming that he just thought, I'm going to hit this guy, I'm going to open my eyes, and I'm either going to have Eric Goddard or Craig Adams or whoever else, Max Talbot, hell, Brent Johnson. Somebody's going to be there waiting for me for delivering this hit. But then what ends up happening is Michael Haley just starts fighting everybody he could. And so like the crime scene kind of shifts all the way down the ice away from this hit. And I don't know how, what Trevor ends up saying allegedly to the trainer. It looks like he's talking to Tangrady. We've now exonerated him from that. But I can kind of see how I'm not, once again, poor behavior from Trevor Gillies here. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I don't think that it is as bad as it was painted. And it is because there is a man with a Fu Manchu standing at the edge of the Nassau Coliseum tunnel with a security guard and a bunch of Islander fans standing behind him, also, in their jeans and their Timbs, and their chests are puffed out too, and they're like, I'm gonna try to fight this Eric Tangrady guy. Like there is a guy if you watch this video back, something I never picked up on before. Trevor Gillies, to his immediate right is the door, and then on the other side of the door is a gentleman in a light blue shirt. And the door, in the hinge of the door, there's like a little space, and this man sticks his face in the little space on that hinge of the door to yell at Eric Tangrady right next to Trevor Gillies, and you can see his nose coming through the door. And so very unfortunate what happens to Tangradi here. What we know about concussions, it sucks. I get it. But in terms of a spectacle, like a sporting spectacle, holy hell, like this is a Picasso. Like it is the amount of things you can pick up on in just this little incident of or not, I shouldn't say little. It's kind of like the climax of this game, but like this 4 or 5 minutes of real time, it's absolutely crazy that this ended up happening. And they, as you said, like he gets walked down the tunnel at the same time at this junction of the game. Goddard skates off the bench. He gets suspended. Gillies gets suspended. Haley gets suspended. So 3 players just end up getting nailed with suspensions in like a 3-minute span. So and there's Jesse Joensuu on the ice too. So it's a wonderful, it's just like a wonderful thing that to behold more than the outcome. Not great, but just in a vacuum as a spectacle. Holy shit.
Eric Goddard also suspended because he came off the bench to fight Haley after Haley went to go fight Brent Johnson. This game was an absolute mess, and you should definitely try and seek it out if you're a newer fan that didn't watch it. But I'm glad you mentioned the suspensions, because that gets us to the aftermath, which was where I think Islanders fans kind of resolve got even more strengthened because the suspensions come down, but not, which was expected. But what also comes down is a memorandum, a communique, if you will, from the Igloo. The Penguins, or I guess I don't know if they were still playing at the Igloo at the time, but the Fortress of Solitude where Mario Lemieux lives, where nobody else has any goons on them. The Penguins are the only team in the league without any enforcers, without any goons. And he starts talking about how he doesn't want to be in this league anymore. It's a garage league. It's this like brutal place where, lawlessness reigns and all this kind of stuff. And this letter is the absolute height of hypocrisy. I'll get to some more hypocrisy later on, but like this letter just made us even angrier after getting our revenge on these guys. This showed us that we were right the whole time, because this Penguins team, again, had guys like Matt Cook, Eric Goddard, Mike Rupp. Like these were guys that were there to fight and throw hands. And Mario Lemieux was acting as if they're all altar boys who just got mugged by these horrible, terrible, no good New York Islanders at their shitty arena. And of course, Mario's never had any love for the Islanders. I'm sure of that. But Rocco, I know you remember this memo. You just talked about you came around to respect Sidney Crosby. I had a ton of respect for Mario Lemieux, and then I lost it all when this memo came out, because I was like, have you looked at your own roster lately? Like, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Who else is in the garage league? That's you, motherfucker. You're in the garage league too with us. What are you talking about?
Right. And I think at that time, Mario was kind of taking advantage of his team's talent level, right? Like
probably
they had the same, maybe not the same amount, maybe a couple less of these goon type players, but they just also so happen to also have Crosby, Malkin, Letang. So he could kind of puff out his chest and be like, see, we play with skill. We play with this. We play with that. Meanwhile, he had guys on his team that were there to protect his guys. He had guys, that were goons, because if you remember at the time, Crosby was actually having some issues with concussions and things like that early in his career. So he needed some protecting. So it was definitely hypocritical, because it was kind of what they did for Crosby we were attempting to do with JT at the time, right? Like he was our number 1 overall pick. We got to protect this guy. We want him to develop. We don't want him getting hurt. And the league at that time would take runs at those sort of players.
Yeah.
You had big guys in the league that wanted to make a name for themselves, and if they saw fit, they would go after a Crosby, a Malkin, an Ovechkin. So you did want these type of players back then to protect that sort of talent on your roster. And I totally hypocritical. And, mind you, a team and a franchise that prior to Crosby had some down years, prior to Crosby had some trouble in their area. Yeah. Are they going to be able to stay in Pittsburgh? Are they going to get a new arena? Whatever, so on and so forth. We were kind of at that stage a couple of years later, and then I felt he was sort of pointing the finger and saying, oh, they're a goon squad, and this is Bush League, and this and that. Meanwhile, it wasn't all too different on their end. And you had one of your guys jump the bench, another weird Islander, Eric Goddard. But yeah, it was that pissed me off. I mean, I still I feel like as I get older, I respect these guys just because they were such great players, and I do with him. But yeah, I remember being pissed at that time because it was just so lame. Like it was so for him to come out and whine, and it felt a little extra with the with coming from him. You almost felt like he was having PTSD from Kasperitis back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, shut up already, man. Like, just like, I don't need to hear from you. Like, if it's from the coach or if it's from a player, whatever. But a figurehead at the top coming out and talking like that, just shut up. Just like, just wear your suit and be quiet. You don't play anymore. Done.
Yeah, really, seriously.
Yeah, it was very Ivory Tower-ish, and pissed me off. And at the time too, like they were building that statue, and it was him dancing Rich Pilon. So like they were always needling us, and as Rocco said, like, yeah, you're not that different from like what we got going on here. In fact, you should be kind of, there should have been some sort of mutual respect. Like we've kind of said on the show a lot, like when the Coyotes were going through what they were going through, being like, we feel for them. We know what it's like to go to bed at night and not know if your favorite team, like your favorite hobby, could just be taken from you at any time. And so to have that, and it felt like he was just tattling. Like, yeah, dude, everyone saw what happened. Like, we know exactly what happened. Just because you guys are where you're at in the standings, and you got the star players, and you are the pet team of everybody in the league, and you're Super Mario, you have a hissy fit. There's, spoiler alert, you're going to have another hissy fit, or people will have a hissy fit on your behalf when Josh Hosang comes to the Islanders too, right? Like, it felt incredibly cringy is the word. It felt like almost like when you go to like a sports game, like a youth sports game, and like there's the parent who's like getting into it with like a 8-year-old on another CYO team or something. You're like, just shut up, man. Like this is so annoying. And but at the same time, it made me happier. Like it really did strengthen the bond between the fan base and this team. Like, all right, good. Like, we hate that guy, and that guy clearly, the Islanders clearly get under his skin from the 93 and run, and just generally, like he clearly can't stand the team. And it's nice to see that he doesn't even have like the self-control to keep it contained after all these years and all the money he's made, and he now owns a team in the league, and he still gets bothered by it. So awesome. I mean, just a wonderful thing. And I one of the things I think about with this night generally is it was just such an aesthetically pleasing thing, right? The Islanders were wearing their royal blue jerseys, which they had just kind of switched back to. There was a whole bunch of like 58s and 59s and crazy numbers out there for the team because they were hodgepodging together a bunch of like journeymen / prospects. And you had the goaltending duo of like Mikko Koskinen was in net for the Islanders, and 6
goalies were used that year.
Yeah,
like, it was crazy.
and then of course like the Coliseum in all its splendor with the yellow, like I was talking about, the security guard and the yellow jackets, and then of course Gillies, like having that mustache and those eyes, and it was as if it was scripted. You said 30 for 30. Like it felt like it almost was already. Like the perfect actors were already cast for this thing. We always talk about the Wikipedia pages of Islanders of yore, and we like to point out the ones that have their Wikipedia picture at Adventureland, like Steve Stais and Peter Regan. Trevor Gillies might have the best of them all, because if you look at his Wikipedia page, it is somebody getting a picture of him during warm-ups with his hands on the board.
Looking at it now,
yeah, and he is front and center, as I keep saying, like staring somebody right in the eye with his mustache.
Yeah,
and this person is taking a picture of this man, and he looks, and it is, I think if you look closely, that is a game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's at Nassau Coliseum. So I'm not sure if it is that game, because I see Zdeno Konopka in the background.
It says February 2011.
Yeah. So it might be right before. It might be that game. And if you were that person taking that picture of Trevor Gillies, you're like, boy, there's somebody on the ice who I think might kill somebody. And
probably right. The moments. This is like that Twitter account, NHL moments before something terrible happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right there. But yeah, so it was again very memorable game. Mario Lemieux made it much worse for his team afterwards. Rocco, you're 100% right. He shouldn't have said anything. And like originally, the sentiment was, "Oh my God, the Islanders are the worst. They're goons. They're horrible." But I know for a fact people kind of came around to it. My friend JJ, who used to write for Winging It in Motown, the Red Wings blog at SB Nation, he wrote a whole post about how he was prepared to, he heard about the game. He was prepared to hate the Islanders, and he went into watching it thinking that they were the bad guys. But after he found out all of the things that the Penguins had done to the Islanders in the course of that, whatever months running up to that, he realized they were totally justified. Like it wasn't pretty. Maybe it wasn't, the best course of action, but he totally understood why they did what they did and why we felt the way that we did. So he got suspended for 9 games, comes back from the suspension in a game against the Minnesota Wild at Nassau Coliseum. He plays 3 shifts and he lays a hit on, let me check my notes here. A Minnesota forward named, this can't be right. His name is Cal Clutterbuck. That can't be a real name. That's very strange.
It'll be held in for a moment, cleared back out. A penalty coming up. And then someone took a shot. I think it was Gillies. Took a shot at Clutterbuck.
Well,
I hope
you know
he's
what?
going to go. He just got back.
We talked about this. Gillies just got back from a 9-game suspension for the craziness that ensued in the Pittsburgh game. And I think Clutterbuck is just paying the price, like we talked about, for a clean hit.
No, they sent Gillies right off the ice for that late cheap shot on Cal Clutterbuck. And Clutterbuck's still down at the ice right near the Minnesota blue line.
Kind of a tough angle for us to see cleanly what happened, but Todd Richards not impressed, as you can see, and Cal Clutterbuck still down there with a trainer for the Wild, Don Fuller, having a conversation. Let's take a quick peek here. And there's Clutterbuck after the hit and all that, just an elbow to the head. And you know what? I have a feeling that Gillies is going to go right back to suspension after making a hit like that. An elbow to the side of Clutterbuck's head after Clutterbuck made a hit on the play. And Gillies showing you the type of guy he is, just getting off a 9-game suspension, coming into the game and playing how many shifts, and all of a sudden getting his elbow up to the side of the head.
Hits Clutterbuck high towards around into the boards, gets thrown out of the game, and gets another 10-game suspension. So he came back from suspension, played 3 shifts, got suspended again, and this is most of the rest of his season. I had completely forgotten about this until I started reading about it again. It's obviously very ironic that Clutterbuck would become a beloved Islander about 2 seasons later. We talked that, he missed that playoff series, but would come to them in 2013. Rocco, you said you remembered this again much after reading about it. It's just, you don't want to laugh, but it is kind of ironic that he gets suspended again right away after coming back, but also this is the guy he gets suspended hitting. That's really, really funny.
Yeah, first of all, great notes from you, because I was reading through them and I'm like, okay, now I'm down a YouTube rabbit hole.
Right.
So now, oh wow, he hit Cal Clutterbuck of all people. So I go back and look at it. And another funny wrinkle of this is he hits Justin DiBenedetto. I might have missed that pronunciation there, but I remember us drafting him because we drafted Matt Martin and DiBenedetto, and those were Stamkos's line mates back in Sarnia, and that was deal back then. So that's the guy Clutterbuck hit, and then Gillies just comes in and clobbers Clutterbuck. Right. An insane boarding. He's getting suspended right away. You see the hit, Clutter's down. And knowing Clutter from all his days with us, when I'm watching it and I'm like, is he down, or is he like Clutter down, like trying to sell this a little bit? We may never know, but it is kind of crazy that that's the player he basically goes after. The hit wasn't that bad. I mean, the player was falling a little bit. Clutter kind of got him, and then he comes in there. The puck's nowhere to be found, just kills him, and then I feel like that's the lasting image. As him
pretty much
from him as an Islander. Another suspension, but that's who Trevor Gillies was, right? He wasn't on the team to score goals. He was on it to fight. He was on it to protect his guys. And in that moment, again, I'm not excusing everything he did, But in the heat of the moment, guys like this, and they'll say it in interviews after, the wires cross, right? And I'm sure a couple times the wires crossed. This was his job. I'm sure he was told coming into the season, protect our young guys.
Yeah.
He sees red. That's what he does. And that was that. Clutterbuck went on to have a pretty solid career after that. So
yeah, right. And Clutter, don't forget too, before, he had this reputation with the Islanders too, but like he was kind of a shit disturber, he was a guy who was going out there. Yeah, making some pretty borderline hits too. So you're probably right. Like they were probably like, that's the guy you need to take care of, and took care of him a little too much, probably. Yeah. This was where I realized that a line had been crossed, like you said, and maybe, as much as I was defending Trevor before for what happened in the February 11th game against the Penguins, this was where it started to kind of turn. Mike, what about you?
Yeah.
This was a rough look. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's right after too, and you're like, God, man, like we just we're defending you to the hills and making fun of the Garage League letter and all that, and then the first you step on the ice and do this, and
then all hell breaks loose. Cal Clutterbuck hits Justin DiBenedetto. In comes Trevor Gillies. He got 5 minutes for a check from behind and then a game misconduct. Now this is Gillies' first game back after that 9-game suspension. So what do we do with this guy?
Well, one thing's for sure, Bill, he's a slow learner because there's no question there's over 700 players in the National Hockey League and there's one meathead, and that's Trevor Gillies. He just continues to do the wrong thing on the ice. The message was sent with the 9-game suspension for what he did against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Another hit to the head that was Tangradi, his head was targeted. He went after him late in the game. The score was decided. Then he stood off on the doorway there and continued to mock the player that he hit, and tonight he goes right back at it again.
You know what? It's hard. This is hard. I love guys that play tough hockey, but this is a guy that doesn't get it. This is a guy that crosses the line, that doesn't know what's appropriate and what's inappropriate behavior in a hockey game. And that's a dangerous, dangerous thing. When you have guys like that, it's not just to win a hockey game, it's to get rid of some personal demons that he has in his own background. It becomes scary. And the league has to step in here, and the Islanders general manager and the Islanders coach and the Islanders owner have to figure this out. They've embarrassed themselves here one time too many. Okay, you have an incident. That happens from time to time. But Garth Snow should be embarrassed for his team, and so should Jack Capuano. They happen to be friends of mine. I hope they get it. And if they don't get it, I hope the league gives it to them.
You know what it feels a little bit like was when Chris Simon, he smoked Ryan Hallwig in the face, and then served that suspension, and then he stomped Jarkko Ruutu, and you're like, can't really defend it again, right. and you felt, and obviously knowing what we know about Simon now, like there's certainly probably some reasons of why those things happen, but that it felt like that in the moment, like, like you can't do it again because now we look like idiots for defending you again. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rocco says, like, it's like a wires cross thing. It's also like if you're there to be the enforcer and you see the, former Sarnia Sting superstar Justin DiBenedetto go down, and this is a guy that Gillies played with in Bridgeport, like that's maybe it's his guy, right? Like, and he sees Cal Clutterbuck was the one delivering the hit, and he had that reputation, and he's like, that's my job. I could hear it from the coaches if I don't go over there and put Cal Clutterbuck down in a battle of the mustaches, and unfortunately he just did it in a non-chivalrous way. Right. And that's how we got here with Gillies, and it ends the career on a sour note and sort of makes you think, okay, we're just gonna, he ends up getting waived and going down to Bridgeport, I know, but like in a way you're like, okay, we're just gonna put Trevor Gillies to the side now and kind of focus on like the rest of this thing that's going on with the Islanders at the time. And I felt that way for a while, and until he started like kind of popping up at these alumni nights again and stuff, and you kind of really start to think about his actual impact on us as fans, the team, the franchise, the players that were on that team, etc. And it felt like it had to end this way in a lot of ways. Like, it wasn't like Trevor Gillies was going to go out and like have like a decent couple goals and the Islanders are going to go flip him for like a 3rd round pick, right? Like he was going to end up doing something like this. And maybe it was for the best that he did it right away rather than down the line. But weird, just a weird, unfortunate ending. Kind of funny, of course, as you said, with the cast of characters involved. And the Islanders were playing the percentages there with that Sarnia Sting line. Like, all right, we'll take the other 2 guys. We'll try to go 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows which one of these guys was the real star?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. It worked out okay, I suppose, not for Justin DiBenedetto, but for Matt Martin, I guess. But it's funny you mentioned Martin too, because like here I was going to say, like, I don't think anybody thought Trevor Gillies was going to have a 15-year career with the Islanders. Like, again, he didn't start playing for them until he was 30 years old. But of course, then you have guys like Matt Martin who can fight, but can also do other things, check, score. And then he does have a 15-year career with the Islanders. So, this was very much sort of like a live by the sword, die by the sword type of thing. And that game against the Wild wasn't his last game for the Islanders. He ended up playing 6 games at the end of that season. Actually had a goal against the Rangers in a game on March 31st, 2011. They re-signed him at the end of the season. He played 3 games for the Islanders in 11-12, 26 games for Bridgeport. And actually, in the 3 games he played for the Islanders, he managed to have 0 penalty minutes, which is probably a first for him. But that was it. By the end of 2012, he had moved on. We'll get into the minor league stops in a little bit, but that was Trevor Gillies' Islanders career. A little bit in 2010, 2011, and then a tiny bit in 2011, and then that was it. So even though it shows up as 3 seasons, it's really just about a year, maybe a year and change. And in that time, 56 games played, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points, 240 penalty minutes. That right there is a stat line. Of course, zero playoffs. This is the most of everything he's had in the NHL. Obviously, just the 1 game with the Ducks, obviously. But, 56 games isn't like a lot, but it certainly, was an impactful 56 games, and again, it's so funny that it's 3 years, but if you look at the 3 seasons, but if you look at the how the dates work out, it's really just a year. It's really just 2010 to 2011, and that's it. And here we are, 20 years later or 15 years later, talking about him still. This was when he gets back on the minor league and sort of, other alternate places to play route. Again, he had played for 10 years before coming to the Islanders, and then he ends up playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years after leaving for the Islanders. So all told, his minor league stops read something like this: North Bay, Sarnia, and Oshawa in the OHL before coming into the pros. Mississippi, Greensboro, Augusta, Richmond, Peoria, Orlando, South Carolina, all in the ECHL. Lowell, Worcester, Providence, Springfield, Hartford, Portland, Albany, Bridgeport, Abbotsford, and Adirondack in the AHL. Chekhov in the KHL. Helsinki in the Finnish league. And then his final stop was in the ECHL with the South Carolina Stingrays in 2018, where he was coached by current Sharks coach Ryan Rostovsky, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, my former classmate, me and him
really?
both got. Yeah, we got. Yeah, I think I've told this story before.
No.
Yeah. He sat him and another hockey player in the college team. So we sat together in a music class that was 3 hours long.
Oof.
And we would just talk hockey the whole day or the
amazing.
whole class. And our last class I remember was about samba, the Brazilian music.
Oh, yeah.
And the 3 of us each brought 2 Four Locos to the class and got absolutely obliterated drunk and left. And he transferred to another school. And me and Chris Bam Bam Baylor, who was from Olds, Alberta, who's still a friend of mine to this day, still hung out forever, and we still talk about that. Yeah, the guy coaching the Sharks, like we got absolutely hammered with him during a music class at 9:45 in the morning on a Thursday.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys didn't talk about Trevor Gillies at all, though.
No, we didn't. They were just astounded that an Islander fan existed.
Yeah.
They were like, "What? How does this happen?"
That's really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's quite a ride. And obviously, as you can tell, we're not going to go into all of these. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, this guy has been around. And as you can imagine, he's had a lot of ex-teammates. And I got to tell you, it's very hard to find an ex-teammate that will say anything bad about Trevor Gillies. He has a high reputation. You heard Ty Wishart talking about him in our last episode. He was apparently, by all accounts, a great teammate. I found some very wholesome videos with him having a little puck battle with Kirill Kabanov, seeing who can get more pucks into a duffel bag or was a bucket, something like that, which I thought was really cute. There's a video with him and his dad from one of the Islanders' dad's trip that's really cool. Both of them have sick mustaches, and they're asked who had the mustache first, and of course it was Murray, the dad, obviously. And yeah, just the guy, he was seen as this scary Terminator on the ice, and in a lot of ways he was, but like off the ice, he's like a totally different person. And in fact, even to his teammates on the ice, like that presence meant a lot to them. And I've seen art inspired by him. And as you said, Rocco, before, he comes to the Islanders games now and he gets a huge cheer from the fans that remember all the things he did. So it's just, it's crazy how this guy got a label all those years ago, but go figure. He's a very complex person. There's many shades to them. And yes, his job involved, fighting other hockey players in a lot of cases, but really there's a person under there. He's a dad. He's got, he's taking his kids to all these different places and stuff. And I think he's a really interesting guy that I think hopefully history has kind of shine a lot more light on. And he wasn't just kind of the monster that he was portrayed to be all those years ago.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's just, yeah, a lot of these guys, it's funny. I feel like a lot of these guys too, not that I've met a ton of them, but the ones I've have gotten to meet, these enforcers, they're quite often like the nicest guys. Like you hear this about Matt Martin too, not that he was the same level of enforcer, if you will, but they're all good guys, and it's, they have this aura about them, if you will. But yeah, Trevor seems like a great guy. You got guys like Matt Martin that are great guys. So the on-ice persona does not always match the person off.
And I mean, if someone was like, hey, you can play in the NHL, but you got to do this, and be like, all right, like if it means I get to play in the NHL, you'll these guys always say like I had to do whatever it took. And I do want to mention one thing about his post-Islander career, which I find to be one of the most impressive feats in hockey history. So yeah, he scored a goal for the Bridgeport Sound Tigers in the 2011-12 season, and then would go on to play what looks to be close to like 100 more games. He didn't score again, including his ECHL, those 3 ECHL seasons. And so here his ECHL totals are staggering, and I think he should go into the ECHL Hall of Fame. 322 games with 1 goal in the ECHL, 19 assists, 20 points, 1,340 penalty minutes.
Wow.
Only scoring 1 goal in 322 ECHL games is unbelievably impressive.
That's amazing.
It's so good. He scored 9 in 409 with the in his AHL career too, which is once again pretty impressive. But the fact that he's in 57 NHL games, he's got 2 goals, and he's in 322 ECHL games, he's got 1. He didn't. That is you talking about a complex human being. I mean, it just that to me just tells you the story, man. That there's something special going on here with Trevor Gillies, and that is an eye-popping stat line.
Yeah, no, very special player, very complex player, and a meaningful one for all of us. And I mentioned it before, and Rocco, you mentioned it too. This, of all the Islanders, sort of post dynasty, I think it's easiest rabbit hole to go down is a Trevor Gillies fight rabbit hole on YouTube. You went through it, I went through it, just doing this. Like, did you have a fight that you came away with very impressed? I mean, there's a lot on there. there's a whole lot. Obviously, hockey fights is, I'm sure, probably a better repository for all these things. But like, how hard did you get sucked into the Trevor Gillies fight rabbit hole? And was there 1 or 2 that stuck out to you? I mean, we mentioned them before, the Bugard and Bissonnette and stuff like that. But did one of them really make you sit back and go, God damn, that was really something?
Honestly, you said it before, and may he rest in peace, but Bugard, I mean, that I feel like Chara was around, but I feel like that was almost the equivalent at one point of fighting Chara, because he was just such a big man. He had such a reach advantage. He was like Rempe with a million times better hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just this huge guy. And then you couldn't get hit. You couldn't get inside on him. So just the fact that Gillies was able to stand in there and fight Bugard during a time where no one really guys fought him because they had to fight him, but no one wanted to fight him, right? So the fact he got in there and, held his own the best he could, I thought that was actually, funny enough, the most impressive, even though it's probably one of his few losses.
Right. Yeah. He ended up on top of him, which I guess is probably the best you can possibly hope for against that. But yeah, just the size, the width, it's really astonishing. And Gillies did the best he could in there, But again, it was more about just kind of making your presence known and making it known that he wasn't kind of, especially when Bugard is on the Rangers, like he has got to make it known that you're not going to have your way with your young guys. Well, this has been awesome, Rocco. I couldn't thank you enough for coming on and picking a guy who is just so many layers and so many different, meant so much to so many people and had so many in a very short time period, had a lot of memorable events happen. And again, he's a guy we won't forget. And thankfully we keep seeing him at games. So hopefully if you see him out there, tell him we all said hello. If you see Trevor Gillies, might be squashing a beer or whatever on the Jumbotron. You are the pizza sports guy. Yes. Obviously pizza is your passion. I'm sure you've mentioned this on Isles House before, but what is the pizzeria where you are working and can be seen at? And, where can everybody find you? And also, me and dough have a very sort of contentious relationship. Whenever I try to make pizza at home, my parents can do it. I have yet to really make one that I particularly like. Do you have a secret for dough? Is it in the water? Is it in the humidity, salt, something that I'm missing here that can really help my home pizza making skills?
I'd have to see exactly what you're doing because each step is very important.
Right.
I might recommend you just stop by and I'll give you dough and you have a starting point.
Right. We've done that too. We've gone to the pizzeria and gotten
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be a superhero. You know what I mean? Like you could be the Avengers. I'll make the dough and then you finish it off. But in order to help you, I'd have to see what's going on a little bit. Maybe send you a tutorial here at this point. But you could find me over at Cafe Dolce Vita. We have spots in Jericho and Deer Park. I kind of jump back and forth between the two. If you're on Twitter or you're on our Discord or Patreon, what have you, just DM me if you want to stop by, see which location I'm with. Love when people come in and say hello. It's great to sort of combine both of my passions, both the pizza industry as well as my love for the New York Islanders and hockey. So love when people stop by, talk some hockey, have some good pizza. It's a great time.
Awesome. There you go. I hope you had a great time. We'll have to get you on again. We'll have to take another look at the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. Maybe we'll do like a home and home sort of thing, or we'll do a full team thing. Me, Jack, and Ethan all come on.
Sure.
Something like that.
we could do that. I'm all up for that kind of thing. We'll expand things. But no, this was awesome. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Sign up at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety for ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts. You know the whole thing. Sign up today. You can get a free trial and check out our country club tier and get all that stuff there. Our theme song is Knuckles by Bjorn Falk. Listen to more of Bjorn's music on Bandcamp and on Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety Podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please leave us a review where you can. Of course, listen to Isles House Podcast with Rocco and Ethan and Jack. It's great. They have a Discord too. And no, they have a Discord. Yeah, you can join there too. Get all your insider information there too. So check them out as well. Also on Patreon. That's what I meant to say. Shop at VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, any final thoughts on Trevor Gillies? I mean, we talk about this fight night game all the time. You can't possibly have any more thoughts on this game that we've already relayed over the course of the 5 years of this show and the 10 years of anxiety. But Trevor Gillies is, a main character in that game. And here we are finally giving him his due.
Yeah, I thought I'd poured over all the footage, but I found that guy putting his beak through the glass, and I've got a new hero. I just think that Trevor Gillies came to this team at the exact right moment. They really needed somebody like him, and he came, and he probably left them right as they didn't need him anymore. And I feel like he was just meant to be an Islander at that time for those Islanders and the fans who saw him, and have like a very deep appreciation for him. And as Rocco said at the top, and we've alluded to, we always appreciate guys who appreciate coming here, because there are a lot of guys who just didn't want to come. And it felt like almost like they were doing us a favor just by showing up to work. And Trevor Gillies did not look at it that way. And he hears it. He hears that appreciation every time he stops by the Coliseum and gives one of those fists to the camera for the Jumbotron, usually wearing a scally cap too. So he knows what he's doing. Trevor, you've got an entire fan base behind you and your 57 NHL games, man. We often talk about on the show that these guys who come in, the Randy Robitailles, etc., they probably don't understand what their legacy is among the fan base. Does Keith O'Coin know that we still love him and hold his name in such high regard? I could tell you something. Trevor Gillies is a man, maybe the first player that we've done on the show that very much understands what his legacy is.
Yeah.
As a Weird Islander. So what a beautiful, beautiful soul he is.
Perfect. I keep forgetting to ask about the legacy question, but yeah, you nailed it. Perfect way to end this. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another great guest and another Weird Islander. Until then, keep the Islanders weird. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.